Sing it!
It's time for Talk Law Radio with Todd Marquardt. Todd Marquardt, attorney at law in Texas. If you're a millionaire or a thousandaire, Talk Law Radio is now on the air. Call in with your business law question, your elder law question, veteran aid, Medicaid, build a business to get paid. 210-308-8867. Or ask a question online at marquardtlawfirm.com. That's MARQUARDT lawfirm.com. And now it's Talk Law Radio with Todd Marquardt.
Welcome to Talk Law Radio. I'm Todd Marquardt on the radio, on podcasts everywhere, on Facebook, and on YouTube. Also, check out talklawradio.com where you can find all these episodes archived, where you can search for legal issues that you're interested in learning about. Today, we have a special guest, Jayne Zirkel, Marketing and Events Manager with the Community Foundation of the Texas Hill Country. Welcome to Talk Law Radio, Jayne.
Thank you, Todd. I appreciate you having me today.
We're glad to have you. But before we start talking about your background and how the Community Foundation of the Texas Hill Country is helping rescue, relieve, and recovery efforts, as well as flood assistance, let's say a prayer. Dear God, thank you for this day. Thank you for all the gifts and blessings that you give to us. Please forgive us for our sins, for our mistakes, for doing the wrong thing or failing to follow your will. Kind and loving Father, rock of refuge, in every need, remember in mercy all those who have suffered loss through the recent storms. Grant healing to the injured, provide for the needs of all those whose property has been damaged, and comfort those who mourn their dead. Use your people as instruments of your care in this time, and help us to remember that we are but pilgrims here, and that our true home awaits us, prepared for us by the suffering, death, and resurrection of your Son, in whose name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Now it's time to discover your legal issue blind spots by listening to me talk about the law on the radio. And like I said before, we're talking with Jayne Zirkel with the Community Foundation of the Texas Hill Country. And I do have to say that that's a mouthful.
Yes, it is.
You have a long name for the company that employs you. And with us also is Shannon Salmon Haas, Instagram influencer and encourager extraordinaire for the city of San Antonio. And you're very colorful today.
Thank you.
I love it. Looks great.
Thank you.
Did you dress up just for this show?
I have a function after this, but
great.
I guess I should have said yes, right? You look amazing.
That's okay. Thank you.
I like your outfit.
I should do outfit of the day.
You definitely should. Yes.
Well, let's talk with Jayne. I wanted to give our listeners some background on you, if that's okay. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Kerrville, right here in Kerr County. I lived here most all of my growing up years and went to Baylor University, finished up there and stayed in Waco for a few years and then came back. And I've been back for about 20 plus years.
Okay. Wow, you're a figure in the community. I bet everybody knows you.
I know lots of people. I've been around here for a while. My husband, his family's been here for a long, long time too. So we do know quite a few folks in the community, which is great.
And how has that impacted your passion for working for the foundation?
I've been with the foundation for almost 15 years, and I love being able to have such purpose. I've always had such purpose. It's been heightened this last month after July 4th. But at the foundation, all of us, there's 4 employees that we've had in those 15 years. And we all have always had a sense of the foundation being larger than ourselves because we're here to serve. And so it's rewarding to be able to serve your neighbor and to know your neighbor. And so that's one of the reasons I've stayed here for so long.
There's a verse in the Bible about that. The lawyer was asking Jesus, what does it take to get eternal life? And Jesus asked the lawyer to explain it, and he said, love God and love your neighbor. And then the lawyer says, well, who's my neighbor? And that's when Jesus told the parable about the Samaritan. I just wanted to bring that up to give a little gospel to our listeners. I also wanted to ask you, you said that the foundation has had 4 employees. How have you been able to handle everything that you do with those same 4 employees? I would imagine that everyone's workload went way up after the July 4th flood.
It definitely did. Working in a nonprofit, other nonprofits will tell you you do lots of things and you wear lots of hats. And so we were already used to wearing lots of different hats and doing lots of different jobs within our own job. But yes, it's stretched us all, that's for sure. But we've had a lot of great volunteer help from the community. We talked with some different friends and others called and said, how can we help? And so we had volunteers here almost from day one. I think the first volunteers started coming in on Sunday, July 6th, to help us maneuver and navigate what was happening. And we've gotten great advice all through this process and partnered with the right folks to help us in different areas that we didn't have maybe quite the expertise that we wanted. So the ability to call other foundations, both in Texas and outside of Texas, who have helped with disasters in their area, really has helped us be able to find our way through this.
That makes a lot of sense. You're helping each other out. Mm-hmm. That's great. Another question is, I was wondering, I sort of, you're going to tell us all of the details about what the Community Foundation of the Texas Hill Country has been doing specifically for this flood recovery. What were some of the things that the foundation does when there's not an emergency disaster?
When there is normal times, whatever those really are, the foundation is very strong in scholarships to high school seniors, whether they're going to college or going to trade school. We also give grants to nonprofits through grant cycles that we host throughout the year. I'm in charge of the events for the foundation, and so we do all kinds of trainings for nonprofits throughout the year. Sometimes they're one-day long summits. Other days it might just be shorter workshops. So those are some of the things that we do on a normal day.
Shannon, you're a member of some charities, or you're an active philanthropist in the community. What, from your perspective, what do you wonder about how the Community Foundation of the Texas Hill Country is handling everything?
Well, one of the questions that I had was how Jayne personally was handling it, because it sounds like it was just all hands on deck, and I can't really wrap my head around how you even start to handle a problem that big. And, they had not been, that wasn't their main purpose. They're not FEMA. They're not,
right,
some big national or agency that was just waiting for this.
Right.
So it sounds like they really had some things in place. I was reading about the lessons we had learned from Katrina, and I'm so glad you said that, Jayne, because one of them that George Bush was talking about was communication and how important that was, that all of the different agencies could talk to each other, the national, federal, the local, that everyone had good communication.
Yes, and let me back up and say that while this is the largest by far disaster we've worked on, our foundation was the point of contact for donations for the Uvalde shooting. And so we have had some experience with disaster response there. And then back in March of this year, we had the crabapple fire in the Gillespie County area. Again, not near as large as what we're dealing with today and right now, but while it didn't prepare us, it did equip us to some degree to know what at least those first steps needed to be to react and begin to lead as much as we could as a foundation for our community. Personally, there's just been all kinds of things happening. My family has known 5 of the deceased that were affected and victims of the flood. One was a friend, Charlotte, who I'd known and been in a book club with for years, and we celebrated her life a couple of weeks ago. But the 4 Zunker family members, Reese, Paula, Lyle, and Holland Zunker, were all swept away in the flooding. And Reese was the local high school soccer coach. And I have 3 kiddos, a boy, a girl, and a boy. And my 2 sons were both soccer players. And my daughter's a soccer player too. But Reese was coach for my older son before he graduated. And then my younger son is a senior this year at the high school and, would have been his coach again this year. So our family has really felt that loss in a personal way. And just this past Monday, we had a celebration of life for the Zunker family, which was a huge community event, which I think helped with a lot of healing. It felt like for the last 4 weeks, there'd been kind of an open wound there in our hearts. And I really, in the middle of that celebration on Monday, I could feel my heart just kind of being stitched back together a little, just feeling that spirit of healing as we were at that celebration.
I'm so sorry.
What a special person.
Yeah.
That even the celebration of their life, which should be a sad event, was healing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank God for that.
I think it was healing for our community because so many people knew the Zunker family and had been touched by them in one way or another. So super sad, but it really was a wonderful celebration of their lives.
Thank you for being so open about that and sharing part of your life with our listeners. I think it really hits home when you can talk about your personal experience.
Yes, thank you.
Well, we've noticed that we have so much that we're dealing with at work and trying to help people. And I have noticed in myself that I just kind of have taken those small bits and pieces of grief one little bit at a time. And that's the way I've been trying to kind of deal with it and allow it to work its way through me. And just in small pieces. That's the best way I can have that happen at this point, because while we're not okay, we still have a job to do, and we have a lot of demands on us because our community is hurting. And we know that those demands are very important to try to meet, but we also know that we have to keep ourselves healthy to be able to continue to meet those needs.
Well, thank you.
So we're always all checking on each other here at the office and telling each other, okay, go home or go take a break or do what you need to do to be better, and to be okay.
We got to take a break. We're just going to take a pause for just a moment, and then we'll come back with some more questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Planning for your summer vacation? Don't forget to plan for the things that really matter. None of us are guaranteed tomorrow. Have you planned for your final affairs? Why spend time and money on vacation plans but neglect your legacy? Contact Marquardt Law Firm today. Our attorneys focus on business and estate law, including last wills, living trusts, and tax-protected inheritance plans. Call 210-530-4278. That's 210-530-4278. Or visit marquardtlawfirm.com.
Welcome back to Talk Law Radio. I'm Todd Marquardt with Shannon Salmon Haas and Jayne Zirkel with the Community Foundation of the Texas Hill Country. We're talking about how the Community Foundation of the Texas Hill Country is helping the community recover and get relief after the July 4th flood in the Texas Hill Country, the Kerr County area. Jayne, can you just clarify for everyone down here in San Antonio exactly which communities were affected by this flood?
So most of the damage was in Kerr County, and that is Hunt, Ingram, Kerrville. And then there's a lot of damage in Center Point as well. Comfort also sustained damage, and Comfort is actually in Kendall County, just outside of Kerr. However, the Community Foundation, we reach out to 10 counties in the Texas region that we have, and Comfort and Kendall County are included in our service area already. And so while we have many other counties that we serve, Kerr County and that small part of Kendall County are the main areas that were damaged that we serve.
How does the Community Foundation of the Texas Hill Country distribute resources or funds to people and organizations and groups?
So in normal times, we make grants to nonprofits, and in that grant-making process, we have gotten to know many, many, many nonprofits in our area. And so when we had to pivot to disaster response, the first people we called on are the ones that are in our area that we've already granted to largely and have been partners with for years. Light on the Hill is one of our partners from the past few years that we've worked with. And they had recovery and reunification efforts at their location. And so they were one of that first round of grants that we offered. We've worked with all these nonprofits for so long that we know that they're doing good work, and we've watched it, we've seen it in the past. And so we knew that moving forward, they would continue that good work.
That makes a lot of sense. I think some of the listeners may have had the questions or concerns about how do you be a good steward of the resources, the donations that people are making, but working with people that you already know, that makes a lot of sense.
Right. So the Community Foundation cannot give to individuals. So we work through nonprofits to make sure that individuals and families get their needs met. And so what we have done is there are quite a few churches in the area, quite a few other organizations. There's volunteer fire departments, many of whom have already received one or two even rounds of grants monies from us since July 4th. And that way we know that, number one, they're already in those communities. The Hunt Volunteer Fire Department is right there. Everybody knows where the fire department is. Everybody knows who those volunteers are. And in large part, those volunteers know who the people in the community are. Mm-hmm. So by giving to them, they're already in the middle of the crisis with people hurting around them. And they were able to quickly pivot and make donations from the grants that we gave them to those most in need.
So the news has reported that the Community Foundation of the Texas Hill Country has received upwards of $60 million. Is that correct?
It's actually grown from that. On Monday, we had a press conference to announce some new measures, and one of the new items in that press conference was that we have reached the $100 million mark at this point, which is unfathomable to us. Mm-hmm. The generosity of this nation has been incredible, to say the least. It's an awful thing that we're having to go through, but I know that people have been touched by all of the generosity from the outpouring of individuals, corporations, small businesses across the U.S. And that has helped to know that we have some of the funds that we're going to need to carry us through this long-range plan for healing and recovery.
I was just going to ask about that. Now that you have so much more money, how do you plan for distributing that? Is it earmarked only for flood relief, and will that get used for years and years, or how long is that expected to last?
Well, the fund that people have been giving to is the Kerr County Flood Relief Fund. And while it is Kerr County, like I mentioned earlier, that also includes Comfort, which is in Kendall County, for some of those funds. And so it's a matter of how we see the needs as they emerge in some cases, and some of them have already emerged. We know that there are going to be needs out there in the year or two to come that we might not even be aware of right now. We just announced at that press conference on Monday 4 major tenets of areas that we'll be working to have a process for. The first is housing. We want to make sure that people, if they want or need a new RV or mobile home or manufactured home, or if they need to remodel, or if they need rent assistance, or if they have lost their house completely and need to rebuild. That is one of our main focus points right now. And coupled with that is mental health and wellness, because we know many, many people, first responders, victims, families, all kinds of people have had trauma that they've seen, that they've witnessed, that they've heard. And we want to make sure that those mental health needs are not overlooked or not underfunded. And so those are 2 of the main focal points that we're working on. In addition to that, as we work through this, we'll also be looking at quality of life, including businesses and other nonprofits that were wiped out. We've had a number of nonprofit organizations, their buildings or their structures were destroyed or severely damaged. So there's quality of life issues there with businesses that we want to do our best to help recover. But then there's also long-term needs, again, that some that we see now and others that we know will emerge. We know for sure this will be a long-term process. I think it'll be at least a 2-year process for some of these immediate things, possibly a little longer. So we want to make sure that we have a good plan in place, and we are working towards that right now. And that was what we announced on Monday.
Who are the decision makers that decide these strategic issues?
So we have a board of directors, and that's made up of people all over our regional area. Some are from Uvalde, others from Fredericksburg, some from Kerrville, all around our service areas. So that board of directors has been leading us through this stabilization period. And any grants that we make, they have to sign off on as a group. And so we've done a lot of communication with them to make sure that those grants were approved and in good time. Moving forward, each of those 4 categories that I mentioned earlier, housing and mental health, those 2 particularly up front, those will all 4 have an advisory council of their own. And that will be made up of approximately 5 to 8 individuals. And for instance, in the mental health category, we're looking at professionals that are already in that field, not people who maybe don't know anything about mental health. We want to bring in the folks that know, and there are plenty of those professionals right here in our area who know the people around us, who know the situation firsthand, and have the expertise and the professional credentials to help us make those decisions.
Okay, we got 30 seconds. What do you want the public to know now? Are you still asking for donations? Do you need any other type of volunteers or other type of help for in-kind donations?
Right now, the in-kind donations are all accomplished. We have lots and lots of stores of those in areas in the community. So the in-kind is all really well suited. As far as other types regular monetary donations are really what we need. And we know that because, again, it's going to be a long road to recovery.
Okay. Well, thank you for joining us. We have to close this segment, but I appreciate it so much. You're like a movie star now. You've had so many interviews.
Thank you so much for what you do.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me on today. I definitely appreciate it and helping us get our word out.
Great. We'll talk to you later.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye. Welcome to Talk Law Radio. I'm Todd Marquardt. On the radio, on podcasts everywhere, on Facebook, on YouTube, and on talklawradio.com. I'm here today with Ben Kemmy, who's an injury and wrongful death attorney here in San Antonio. Also, Shannon Salmon Haas,
Hi, Todd.
who is representing the Instagram influencers and encouragers of the world. Shannon, how are you encouraging people this week?
This week, I took a CLE, and so we have to do that continuing legal education. This week felt like any obligation I had, any responsibility that was mine, all landed on this week. So I've been really scrambling to fit everything in. But I got here, and
Yeah.
we're doing this, and next week should be better.
Yeah, well, you look great.
You just made my heart soar when you told me that. Thank you. You do too. You as well.
I love the colors.
Thank you. You're really good for my self-esteem. Thank you.
Okay, so we want to know more about Ben before we start talking about lawsuits following the Hill Country flooding and whether they're going to be viable or not. Ben, where did you grow up? Where did you go to school? How did you get into this?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me today. I'm a San Antonian. I grew up here, was born and raised here. I went to Antonian in Castle Hills, a Catholic school in Castle Hills. I went to college at Notre Dame, and I went to law school at the University of Houston before my wife and I moved back when we had our daughter. So I've been a lawyer for a little over 10 years, and I've been practicing personal injury and wrongful death the whole time. Yeah.
Okay, and why did you choose that field, that focus?
One main reason is just it was a family business already. My dad has been a personal injury lawyer in San Antonio for over 30 years. And so I grew up kind of around his practice a lot. And I wasn't even sure I wanted to go into law when I graduated college. So I took some time off. But then once I started my legal education, I knew that I wanted to do trial work rather than, transactional work. And then once I decided that, it kind of just fit naturally to represent injured plaintiffs and work with families and injured people that way. It's been really rewarding, and it's been a great fit. Yeah.
How interesting.
Yeah. Tell me more about the rewarding part. What do you find rewarding about it?
I think, to me, the most rewarding aspect of it is to work with people who are oftentimes in really difficult or they're grieving a loss in the family or a new disability that they didn't have before, and ensuring that they know what happened and why, ensuring that there's some accountability that can be realized when the law provides it, and helping them start a new chapter in their life and get back on their feet, so to speak. That's really the most rewarding part.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. It does, yeah.
So we've been doing, my dad has been doing it for over 30 years, and so now I practice with him and 4 of my brothers. And so we all do personal injury work together.
So this is Ben Kemmy, and what's the family law firm name?
The Kemmy Law Firm. We're down on Main, right by SAC. And so we all office together with the 2 dogs that my brothers bring in. And so it's a family atmosphere.
That's great.
That is good, yeah.
Well, family atmospheres can be positive or they can maybe be negative.
Sure.
What's it like to get through a day or a week with family all the time?
Mostly a lot of fun. And, you know, in a family business, there's a lot more cooperation in some ways.
Right.
Because we're not trying to one-up each other to, you know, make some kind of partner track. We're all just in this together.
Right.
And then, yeah, of course, you know, families have their own dynamics that exist in any endeavor you can come up with, whether it's camping or practicing law.
Where are you in the birth order?
I'm the second oldest, so my older brother Nick, and then me, and then my brother Jack, Danny, and Seamus, all of us practice together. Yeah.
And so are you the peacemaker, or is it your next youngest? Usually it's the
He's the
child.
instigator. I saw it, right? Did you see that hesitation?
I think we wear that hat, pass it around depending on the situation, but she's probably right. That title usually goes to my brother Seamus. So, yeah.
That's awesome.
That is cool.
Okay, well, we've talked about your background. Now, tell us where you got your education, and then I guess you came back to San Antonio to be with family. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. So my wife is from here. I'm from here, and so we were in Houston for the first couple of years of my practice, and then once we had my daughter, it was just like, well. There's a whole bunch of people at home that can help us.
Be closer to family.
And so that kind of was the reason for my move. And then at first I just started officing with my dad because I needed office space. And then kind of over a couple of years, our dockets began to merge more and more until we just decided to hang a shingle together.
He must be so proud.
He is. He's stressed, proud, and happy, and, you know, all at once. And so...
it sounds like he gave you the freedom, though, that you got to explore and see if you really wanted to do this. He didn't force you into it, but
sure.
I bet he's so proud. For
sure. And in fact, I think more than anything, he cautioned each of us that, you know, becoming a lawyer is a huge responsibility.
Right.
And it's not for everyone.
Right. And he'd be so qualified to, because he's done it, so he knows the good and the bad. And so, no, by no means was this, you know, in the works, you know, from when we were kids. It just kind of came together.
Okay. Well, the thing I want to talk about the most is the Texas Hill Country flood that happened on July 4th. And it's a tragedy. I mean, we all recognize that. You know, people died and they lost loved ones and they lost property and they had injuries. And so the Express News reported on some attorneys that had ads on the internet about trying to reach these victims and see if they could file lawsuits on their behalf. And so that's why I wanted to talk to you about that. When there's a flood like this, who's responsible?
Yeah, and
I mean, who can you file a lawsuit against?
And I think, you know, first of all, like you said, it is just a tragedy of like unimaginable magnitude that we lost over 130 Texans in a single evening, single morning. And so for those families that are still grieving, you know, I do believe this, my prayers go out to you. And may you be comforted in your grief.
The whole community. I mean, all of us, we all.
Yeah.
Well, nationwide, actually, you can say everybody, it just touched everybody.
Yeah. And I think it's one of the saddest events in my lifetime as a Texan. I'm 40 years old. But especially the loss of so many children. Was just especially painful. But of course, when awful things like this happen, it's natural to ask questions as to why. Not only for, there being accountability or justice to the families, but also just, is there something that we can do so that something like this doesn't happen again? And so I think both of those questions still have a long way to go to be fully answered.
Right. Yeah.
But if you think about the possibility of the claims, there's, of course, the government's role in coming up with the disaster management plan, responding to the disaster while it was unfolding. You can put one bucket of issues there. A second with the camps. There's a lot of camps in that county. I used to go to camp in that county. And so those claims are going to be analyzed a little bit differently. And then the third is just people who are in RV parks or rental properties who were caught up, and there were people who died in those situations as well.
Right.
And so those are kind of three main areas that you would look at with this tragedy. And so they all have unique challenges ahead of them.
Okay. So for those people that aren't lawyers, talking with Ben Kemmy, he's an attorney here in San Antonio. He focuses on personal injury and wrongful death. And so just in 1 minute or less, can you explain what that term wrongful death really means?
Right. Wrongful death it's a lawyer phrase, but it means that somebody died because of carelessness. Death is a natural part of life for all human beings, but the circumstances under which people die can be because of carelessness. Anything from texting and driving and not watching the road to substandard medical care, and it runs the gamut of all kinds of ways where people die not intentionally. Nobody intended that to happen, but it was the carelessness of somebody that caused it.
So this is Talk Law Radio with guest Ben Kemmy. We're talking about whether lawsuits following the July 4th Texas flood could be viable. We have to take a break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Planning for your summer vacation? Don't forget to plan for the things that really matter. None of us are guaranteed tomorrow. Have you planned for your final affairs? Why spend time and money on vacation plans but neglect your legacy? Contact Marquardt Law Firm today. Our attorneys focus on business and estate law, including last wills, living trusts, and tax-protected inheritance plans. Call 210-530-4278. That's 210-530-4278. Or visit marquardtlawfirm.com.
Welcome back to Talk Law Radio. I'm Todd Marquardt, on the radio, on podcasts, on Facebook, on YouTube, and on talklawradio.com. Shannon's the one that's on Instagram. So do you want to talk about what's going on with Instagram today or this week or this month?
I like Instagram a little better. I don't know why, but I feel a little... It's probably delusional, but I feel a little bit safer on Instagram. If someone's going to go viral for all the wrong reasons, it's usually TikTok. It's not Instagram. But there's grandmas on Instagram, and I know there's other stuff too.
Well, maybe that's your audience.
Right, maybe yeah, I think so.
Embrace that.
I was learning a little bit about social media law at this CLE that I was at. And I was telling, because I met a pastor there also, and I was telling him, this is where the people are. They're on social media. So if you claim to love people, because a lot of my friends say, oh, stay away from that. It's bad. This is a very evil thing. Mm-hmm. But if you love people, that's where they are. So you might want to rethink whether you want to be on there or not.
Right. I've had people say that too. They're afraid of social media because, they say offensive things and they post offensive things.
Right.
And you don't want to see that. You don't want your kids to be involved in that.
Exactly. There's a lot. There's dangers.
But it's like when the caveman invented the fire.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm sure that he got burned.
Right.
Yeah. One hopes that the next generation, my daughter's 8, and I think we're thinking about ways to, delay some of the screen exposure and be a little bit more thoughtful with how kids are brought up with these tools. But certainly for the past, 20 years since Facebook has existed, it's been a lot of trial and error.
Yeah.
I tried to avoid Facebook because I didn't like just people watching your life. I felt like Facebook was the Truman Show.
Right.
It's not really like that. It's just that people want to be the Truman.
Right.
Yeah, and that is kind of, I think, the older school perspective on Facebook. It came out when I was in college, and so at first it was literally just a picture of people's faces. And now
right, and so
it's quite different.
Right.
I said, I don't want to see those people. Like, I left high school. See ya. I didn't want to keep in touch with those guys.
Right.
But if I'm friends with you on Facebook and I went to high school with you, we're still cool, okay? But let's get back to wrongful death and whether that's a viable claim following the floods in the Texas Hill Country on
Todd,
July 4th.
Can I ask you something? So what was the Express News? Was it generally negative, that this was a very predatory type of action?
Yes, that was the angle on it.
I see.
But I think that there's a different way to look at it. Is there, Ben?
Yeah, I think so. And I totally understand how people out in the public have negative reactions to lawyers advertising for
after a tragedy.
It looks unsavory. It looks disrespectful to the community. And so I get that. We're not advertising for these cases, and we're not looking at these cases. And so if there are any lawyers who are considering taking these cases, I would just, advise that everybody proceed cautiously and really zero down on that person's individual case and see if there's any avenue of recovery for that individual person would be my recommendation.
That's good advice,
Yeah.
I would think. Yeah.
So I learned in torts, which is what they call civil lawsuits for damages, that in order to find negligence, there has to be a duty, a breach of that duty, a causation from that breach that causes damages. Is that still the analysis when you look at this type of case?
Yeah, that's still the bedrock of any injury or wrongful death case. And what that is, it just means that the law has a standard that applies in all sorts of situations. In most situations that you can think of where we're interacting, doing business, driving on the road, and that is just that we all, as kind of a social compact, agree that we're going to act reasonably around each other so that, none of us are unnecessarily harmed. And so when the law can find that I have breached that duty to somebody and I have caused them unnecessary harm that's led to damages, and damages can either be pocketbook expenses or what's now called non-economic damages for like the loss of a limb or something.
Pain and suffering.
Correct. That it's my responsibility to pay those damages, and that's usually done by way of insurance. Yeah.
Okay, so bring that to the situation with the flood. You mentioned some of the different issues where the county has some infrastructure in place. Did they have a duty with regard to the flood to have some type of warning system or to have rivers that don't overflow. I don't know.
And so that's a good question, Todd. And I think here it's important to distinguish between different kinds of duties, right? Because we can have a moral duty, we can have a political duty to enact good policy. That doesn't mean that we have a legal duty to do those things. And so, for example, you brought up like warning systems. That is a kind of thing that is decided by policymakers, by elected representatives who decide what is the best policy for our community to have related to the river, for example. And so if they decide that we don't need external sirens by the river, no court is going to say that they had a legal duty to do that. And there's a reason for that. It's because in our American system of government, we leave certain decisions to elected representatives. Mm-hmm. And once they make that decision, we don't really want courts to come in and say, we're holding you accountable because that was a bad decision. That would put the court above the elected policymakers.
Separations of powers.
Right. And so as it relates to the flood, there's going to be a lot of questions about whether a better warning system would have saved lives. And even if the answer is yes, the failure to adopt a better policy is it's going to be very difficult to make a lawsuit work on that basis.
Okay, let's quickly shift to the camps.
Yeah.
You attended a camp in that area, and most of the time there's no floods, and mm-hmm. so all the kids have a great time. It shapes their childhood in some mm-hmm. way, and everybody's happy. But in this case, there were cabins next to the river, and the river flooded. Just speculating, if there were a camp like that, do they have a duty to not build a cabin next to a river?
This is a different situation because, of course, when you drop your kids off to a camp, the agreement is that you're going to take care of my child. You're going to reasonably take care of my child while they're here. And so, yes, the camps do have a duty towards their campers. Bottom line, yes, they do. They have a duty to reasonably keep them safe. And it may turn out that it was unreasonable to put those cabins where they were. I'm not going to hazard a guess on that. That's going to be the subject of expert testimony about where's a safe place to put a cabin. But the camps themselves, take Camp Mystic, for example, which is where, unfortunately and tragically, a lot of young girls were swept away in the flood. That's a Christian camp that is likely going to come under the protection of the charitable immunity statute. And what that means is that the law treats charitable nonprofits differently when it comes to injury and death claims than it does, for-profit institutions like Walmart. And the reason for that is that we want those charitable institutions to succeed without a whole lot of insurance liability costs, mainly. And so there are protections for charitable institutions like Christian camps in situations like this.
Okay, quickly, what if there was a waiver of liability? The parents sign off, they say, if anything bad happens, the camp's not responsible. Does that hold water in court?
It can. Usually, it depends on the language of the waiver, and sometimes the courts set aside waivers on public policy grounds or construe them strictly for reasons. But yes, the waivers of liability can have effect. And I think the analysis would be whether is reasonable to read that as covering, where the cabin is going to be placed. Because depending on the language, it could cover, things like somebody tripped on a sidewalk or somebody got hit with a baseball or something.
Right.
But whether it covers like the actual layout of the camp and whether it was a safe design, that's something that somebody would have to look at individually, waiver by waiver.
So this is Ben Kemmy. He's a personal injury attorney and wrongful death attorney in San Antonio. If you need to reach him.
Yeah, if you need to reach me, our website is at kemmylaw.com. You can reach us at advice@kemmylaw.com or our telephone number, 210-750-1019.
And that's Kemmy.
Yeah, I always do it for people over the phone. K as in King, E as in Edward, M as in Michael, M as in Michael, Y. Yeah.
All right. Shannon, I'm going to give you the last second just to say goodbye.
Goodbye.